No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, plain.
No, wait, I'd have some flavour.
Ready sorted then.
You're only saying that because I called you a quaver.
Final decision, ready salted, most boring Chris there is. Next.
No, not playing now.
Where's Roy?
Nipped out for some change.
Here, Arlene, if I were a packet of crisps, what flavour would I be?
What?
Well, you'd be salt and vinegar.
Ridged.
Yeah, ridged. Ridged salt and vinegar. No nonsense, hardy with a pleasant sharpness.
Hello and welcome to episode 143 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast. That was frankly a little surprised this week to learn that the community centre is still a thing, and even more surprised to learn that Yasmeen still owns it. I'm Gavin.
And I got a new pet.
Your fifth born.
Yes. Yes. Sadly, our green Roomba, one of the brushes snapped off. And I think some hair got into like the engine, into the motor, and that's why I was making the buzzing noise.
Oh.
And I wasn't able to get it out. So it wasn't really picking things up very well anymore. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of bit the bullet and bought a newer one that self-docks and talks to you, and I can program on my smartphone. So it's still kind of sad. I kind of feel like I need to bury the old one in the yard with Teddy.
Yeah, you became very attached to that thing.
You become very attached.
You were very maternal to it.
Yes.
Walking behind it, giving it encouragement.
Yeah, and I've been encouraging, like when the new one self-docked for the first time, I was like, oh, what a good boy.
Oh, it's a boy? Okay.
I have a friend who has attached large googly eyes to the top of her Roomba.
Okay. Yeah.
So that it has eyes now, and while it's going around, it actually looks like a creature. I don't know if I'm going to go that far.
You're contemplating it?
You can buy clothes for your Roomba.
Somebody's making money out of this, aren't they? It's ridiculous. It's like the little... Do you get Henry Hoovers over here? Or Henry vacuum cleaners, rather? They're almost kind of what you'd expect to see a cleaner at a office facility. Mm-hmm. They would have this little half barrel kind of shaped thing.
Right, yeah, and then it's got
back.
the hose and then the little flat part.
And the hose is where the nose is, and
right.
there's eyes, and there are eyes in it, and it's called a Henry.
Uh-huh.
So this is like a kind of Roomba. It's a kind of flattened down, squished Henry.
Right.
Yeah.
That you don't have to drag around with you, and
But
isn't
this
nearly
one
as
speaks.
heavy.
What did it say to you? I can't do that, Helen.
Yeah, when I was emptying it, I accidentally pushed a button, and because it was up in the air and upside down, it said error, cannot be used at this time. Put me down and push clean if you want me to clean, sort of thing. So that's nice.
Timbot 4000 says shit just got interesting.
So once again, Timbot is usurped as the best robot in the house.
Well, that was great.
Poor Timbot.
Poor Timbot. That's all right. Hey, I'm still we're both wearing
We're both wearing merch.
We're both wearing merch. We're both wearing Corey Podcast t-shirts today.
I feel like Iron Maiden when they do a concert and they're wearing Iron Maiden t-shirts. And I never thought that was particularly cool.
No.
And here you've got a Doesn't Work at the Factory t-shirt on. And I've got my...
Locked in the Bistro with Simon Barlow.
Yep.
It's hilarious.
Both of which are available from our merch store.
Absolutely. Yes.
They're good t-shirts.
They're good t-shirts. They're cozy. They're nice and cotton and good stuff.
I think they're Hanes, aren't they? Are they Hanes? I can't remember.
No idea.
They're not Fruit of the Loom, I'll tell you that.
No. Anyway, I think we're better than Iron Maiden because
the numbers suggest that.
There's nobody else here seeing us wearing our merch. We're just talking about wearing our merch. So that's not as bad as getting up on stage wearing your merch.
In front of thousands of people who are also wearing your merch.
You know, once conventions become a thing again and we go to our first podcasting convention, we won't be wearing our merch if we're doing like a
imagine something much worse. How are you this week?
I don't know. Something hit me really hard a few days ago.
I feel like I've been sick for about a month.
Like,
it's only been about a week.
Thursday, I had to get up early for me and go to my oncologist appointment. And by the time I got home, I was just so worn out. I went to bed and I didn't get back up really for the rest of the day.
No.
And then even yesterday, I wasn't dragging nearly as much, but I was still kind of dragging. It sucks.
I know. I've just had to power through.
Yeah. And then I had to schedule a colonoscopy. So, yay. My first one in well over a year.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have one last year because I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going into a hospital for that long in 2020. Still kind of nervous about doing it in 2021, but needs must.
Do you wear a little face mask over your tush?
Can't really do that, can I? Considering something's going to be going up there. They're going to be doing an up and a down again.
Oh, really?
Which tends to happen. Where I get the endoscopy and the colonoscopy at the same time, but with different hoses.
That takes a bit longer to do.
Yeah, they use different,
You'd hope they'd use fucking different hoses.
There's different scopes.
Just take a cloth to this one. As good as
wipe
new.
it off. All right.
Just run it under a hot tap for a couple of seconds.
If they did that, you'd hope they'd do the endoscopy first. And then the colonoscopy.
Yeah. Clearly, there's a better way.
Yeah. Although I have to get in position for the colonoscopy before they put me to sleep. So, who knows?
Downward dog.
Assume the position.
This is lovely conversation. Great banter.
Yes. How are you this week?
Gavin is frequently hilarious. I'm fine. I was feeling a little bit under the weather a bit this week. It's been a tough old week work wise.
Yeah.
An awful lot of
Stuff
and meetings and stuff.
and stuff about meetings
Yeah.
and meetings about stuff.
We actually had a meeting to discuss the meeting that we were about to have. With a pre-meeting meeting.
Yeah.
And I said on the calendar, is that right? Is that a pre-meeting meeting? And he said, yep. Okie dokie. We're having a meeting to discuss the meeting that we're about to have. Should we have a meeting to discuss the meeting that we've had? Who knows?
I was working from home for years before all of this happened.
Yeah.
I haven't had nearly as many meetings as I have this past year now that everybody is work from home. It's kind of annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't make me more productive. In fact, it takes away my productive time because I'm in a meeting instead of...
You're not productive when you're in the meetings?
Processing work.
I'm very productive when I'm in meetings.
My meetings tend to basically be my boss going over my productivity report from the day before, which doesn't really...
That's still the one that I designed.
Probably.
Hey, you're welcome.
I mean, it would make sense if it was like, okay, how have you been throughout this whole last quarter? But it's never that. It's just...
Oh, that thing was never designed to be talking about one day.
The report from the day before.
Yeah, we can talk about
only
this
one
offline.
day.
Shall
But
we,
my boss is nice, so it's fine.
shall we preamble, my dear?
I like talking to her. Yes, please.
Let's have some of that productive Corrie news.
Not all actors are faring well financially during the pandemic. Charlie Condu, who played Marcus Dent on Corey, has taken to selling the clothes off his back on the website Depop to pay the bills. That's kind of sad.
Haven't we talked about him before?
I think we have. Something else happened to him this...
Why are we picking on this guy?
He's in the news an awful lot for some reason. Maybe because he can't find work. He's constantly... His publicist is constantly putting these news things out on him to hopefully garner some work.
That feels a little cruel.
Well, so he did Corey, and then he did Holby City, and then he left that, and then the pandemic hit, before he could get more work. And this seems to be
Yikes.
a common theme, but some people are faring better than others. Some people, like our Sinead, Katie McGlynn, who is also out there raising money, not for herself, but for Stand Up to Cancer. She is appearing in the show Stand Up and Deliver to raise money for the organization, and was paired with the comedian Zoe Lyons to create her own stand-up comedy routine.
Oh.
First, she had to write her own
Holy
by herself.
shit, really?
First, she had to write one by herself and do one by herself in front of the comedians.
Yikes.
Yeah. She said she was terrified, but apparently she did very good. Apparently, people on Twitter have been praising the show and saying that the people who are not stand-up comedians weren't awful, were surprisingly not bad.
She was on, was it Catchphrase? I don't know if I was watching this over Christmas, a lot of the celebrity editions of quiz shows, and I think she was on one of them. Was it Richard Herring that was on it? Was that why I was watching it?
Probably.
She didn't do great, I don't think. But it was funny seeing her out of context.
Right, yeah. It's always funny seeing...
It's like, oh, what's Sinead? And she kind of talks, obviously, a bit like Sinead, but
Right.
not, obviously,
Not
exactly
as,
like Sinead.
Yeah, not as thickly.
But still, why Sinead on Catchphrase with Andy Peters and Richard Herring? I don't think it was Richard Herring, but anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I think that would be terrifying.
I remember Richard Bacon did it once. He's a Five Live and ex-Blue Peter presenter, and he did I think he just did a 5-minute set at the Edinburgh Festival, and it was broadcast live, and he started really well, and that gave him false confidence, and it went downhill very, very quickly after that.
Yeah.
But he still did it, and he was so high afterwards. It was like just 100 miles an hour. The adrenaline just going through him must have been incredible. I always fancy trying to put like a little 5-minute set together.
Yeah. I in college, I attempted to do a stand-up routine for a like a talent show sort of thing, because my friends were always telling me how funny I was and that I should do stand-up. So I tried. I didn't prepare very well. I just had all of my jokes in my head, and I hadn't written anything down, and I bombed terribly. Fortunately, that meant that I didn't make it to the actual show, so it was only like in front of like 3 or 4 people. But still, I was just like, that is a lot harder than you think it's going to be.
Yeah, I kind of adopted the Billy Connolly theory, or starting point, where he was a folk singer and he just did little jokes between songs.
Right. Kind of like Abby Hoffman.
And then his show became less and less about the songs and more and more about the jokes in between.
Right.
So I try when we go and do open mics, try and put little jokes in between the poems or the stories, and then if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, right? Yeah, I do that sometimes. Stelly, on the other hand, is a brilliant little 12-year-old stand-up comedian. She's done stand-up for talent shows quite a few times.
Keep on telling her though, she can't
does
go up
really good.
and tell knock jokes. Have a theme, have a little plot to go through for her. But she's like, nah.
She does write her set down, though. She's a lot more professional than her mother when it comes to stand-up.
Anyway.
Finally. We're still doing Corey News. Finally, Faye Brooks has come out in praise of her Cobbles co-stars Allison King and Kim Marsh. Brooks, who played Kate on the show, claimed King, who played her sister Carla, and Marsh as both friends and family. She has also had to switch skating partners on Dancing on Ice.
Yeah, I saw that.
And is now paired with Matt Evers, as Hamish Gaiman has left the show due to an injury to his hand.
Yeah, I think they're dropping like flies in that show.
Yeah. Apparently it's cursed.
Well, they're trying to do it.
They're ice skating. Ice skating brings injuries. Faye Brooks herself said that she put off doing Dancing on Ice for a long time because she was really worried. You know, she's like, my face is my bread and butter. So I don't want to do something where I'm going to potentially fall on my face and break my nose and ruin my face. But then she was offered it during the pandemic and
Sure.
it's like, you need the money. You need the money. It's a pandemic. You take whatever is on offer. And that's Corey News.
That's Corey News. We have a
It's all about
mailbag,
money this week.
a mailbag hindsight corner crossover.
Oh, yes. From our own Mersey Tart. Bloop,
Yeah.
bloop, 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 bloop.
Scott took the time to write in with a couple of hindsight corner entries. Yay!
Yay!
First, when Ed said that Michael was, quote, showing Ronnie streetcars, he should have more correctly said showing Ronnie 2 streetcars. He turned up in his posh Merc, but after all that rum in the Rovers, he couldn't drive himself home. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that
I
does
thought,
make sense.
Oh, did we mishear that? No, we didn't mishear it.
No.
He did say he's showing, but I think the phrase in the UK, they drop the 2. So saying to somebody, I'm showing someone streetcars means I'm showing them the way to streetcars.
Why not just say, I'm taking him to streetcars to get a cab because he's drunk too much and can't drive his car home.
Don't write the show, Helen. And second, when Brian came back to the street in 2016, he was working for Weatherfield Council and he was obsessive about recycling and environment. He's about the only character in the show who would get into an arc if someone put rubbish in the wrong bin, and he's also pernickety enough to pull it out and hand it back to the offender. Thank you very much, Scott, for doing our work for us.
Yes, thank you.
So he joined, or he came back in 2016, worked for the council. He's been a teacher
Right.
and a shopkeeper.
Yes.
A busy
All
boy.
in 4
and
years.
Four and a bit years, yeah.
He was more productive than our last president.
Subtle.
Was it?
Subtle, I think, is the word for that. And now this.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh, welcome to Last Year Tonight with me, John Oliver. Just enough time to quickly talk about 50% doormat.
Who was 50% doormat last? Was it Carla?
No. This was Steve
Oh.
insisting to Liz that he wasn't a total doormat to Tracy. Yeah, just 50% doormat, said
This is
Liz. I was Gavin and you were knackered from Girl Scout cookie duties. This was the weekend or the Friday when you were at the work
Yes.
and you sold over 800 boxes of cookies
Yes.
in 2 hours.
Yep, not doing that this year. Although I guess they're trying to figure out a way to do like a virtual cookie booth for Jackson. I don't exactly know how that's going to work.
You give them virtual cookies for virtual dollars. Sure.
Or like people place orders and then we get them to them somehow.
Deliver them, yep.
Yeah. I don't know.
I can imagine how it would work.
They're still trying to figure that out. We did do a drive-through cookie booth last night, our first one. It went all right. Didn't sell no 800 boxes of cookies, though.
No.
But that's all right. Sally doesn't seem to be really into it this year anyway. And honestly, really, neither am I. It's weird because I can I vividly remember that day, you know, being in the office and selling cookies. And it was like one of the last, I think it was the last time I was in the office.
It would have been, yeah. Because it was this time last year.
Yeah.
And in 2 weeks we got sent home.
Yeah. So it was the last time I was in the office. And it already kind of felt kind of weird.
Well, you were in the other building.
Mm-hmm.
You're in number 8.
Yep.
Which, rumour has it, because so few people want to go back to work after this, and they're just quite happy working from home, myself included.
Yes.
We don't need these 2 massive buildings that house 4,500 people.
That they just built.
Yes, spent $100 million building the second one.
They're beautiful.
So the thinking is that everyone would just move to 8 and they'd rent out number 1.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. Number one's just been revamped, just been brought up to make it look a bit more modern.
Yeah.
It's an older building.
Yeah,
it's an
to catch up
80s
to number
building, I
8.
think. Or a 90s building, yeah.
Anyway.
Fascinating stuff. So, we talked at length about the geography of one of the buildings that we work at. It was a pretty poor week on the cobbles. Tracy and Peter engage in a bidding war on number one. Kev and Abby's alibi fall to pieces and results in someone determined to get their hole. James is deflated by Ed's confession to Danny. Bethany somehow gets an offer for an internship at that London, despite her writing being below par for a writing course. I remember being outraged about that. Daniel makes a life decision that Beth hates. Gemma goes stretching with people who secretly hate her. Tim's dad kills a chicken. Our moment of the week was James confronting his dad about being gay, and our boring moment of the week was David telling DJ Ryan to turn up the music at Adam's stag do.
Isn't it interesting that it was a year ago that Charlotte the chicken met her end?
Yep.
And then this week we attempt to add a new Bronte sister to the hen house.
We do. And that was Coronation Street on the Talk of the Street this time last year. Shall we dive in, my dear?
Oh, yes, please.
Our first storyline this week
Is what?
is Peter's liver story.
Fool me once.
I just saw the clip of George Bush doing that. No, we've got a saying in Texas, I think you say it in Tennessee, fool me once, you won't fool me. Stop fooling me. Stop trying to fool me. On Monday at the factory, Carla's aggressively battering away at her keyboard when in comes Lucas, who doesn't work at the factory and doesn't have a meeting at the factory. But Sarah okays it because anyone can just wander in whenever they feel like it. Lucas lays down an awful lot of exposition in a very short time. He's been pitching Underworld to his boss Martha and has scheduled a one-to-one meeting with her and Carla in Harrogate that he apparently won't be able to attend or something.
Mm-hmm. Do you know you can get keyboards that make the little clickety-clickety noise because people miss the clickety-clickety noise?
Sure. Later, Sarah checks in with Carla and is surprised when Carla is wetting herself with excitement about this presentation to Martha, and she wonders if there's history between her and Lucas. Carla insists not, and besides, Lucas isn't even going to be there. She just fancied a night in with Peter, but she'll go do the presentation and blow it out of the water because, let's face it, she's the only one there who could. Burn.
Yeah, I thought we'd gotten past the bad blood between these two.
No.
Obviously not.
No. Now, at the time when
I'm trying to think.
Adam boffed Carla.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if my boss had sex with you, would I forgive her?
If we were estranged. Because they were estranged.
They were estranged, that's true. Still, I've had other husbands sleep with people when we were estranged, and it didn't feel good.
I don't imagine it would feel good.
No. But they weren't my bosses. So.
You'd probably just grin and bear it. Although I'm not sure who the boss is in this situation.
Yeah, because
Sarah's
Carla's not really the boss.
Sarah's
They're
an owner,
partners.
isn't she?
Yeah. And Carla doesn't own any bit of the factory anymore because she gave all of her shares to the people, to the Knicker people.
Oh, I'm missing Knicker people and their songs. Remember their songs? The little mining songs that they had.
Hi ho, hi ho.
I'm sure that's...
It's off to Stitch I go.
She was brought in as a kind of firefighter, wasn't she?
Yeah. I'm not really sure what her position is anymore.
Battering the keyboard seems to be her position of choice. Anyway, at number one, somehow Ken is managing to be annoying about jigsaws. Carla comes in and it's all very pleasant until she mentions that she has this meeting for a national account for work, and Peter loses his shit because she promised to have a takeaway tea with him.
Seriously, he is such a baby. He's such a baby. It's just...
He couldn't have been more
please,
of a
let's
baby.
end this relationship. Please.
Sitting doing his... If only it had been like a 16-piece jigsaw. You know, the big...
Right.
Sitting in his high chair, doing his 16-piece jigsaw, having a tantrum because Carla's going to a meeting.
Right. He's got the blankie. He's got his blankie.
Mm-hmm. He's got his wee
got his cup.
nook. He also seems to think that this Lucas character is her ex and will be attending until she puts him right, but it doesn't matter. Go to your fucking meeting, he says. It's obvious you'd rather put your career ahead of me. And Carla calls him a child and leaves.
Right. Because he's being a child.
Weirdly.
Oh, God. The whole, I see. You'd rather put your career ahead of our relationship.
But you promised me a takeaway for tea, damn it.
Right.
What? Sitting there with his little
And
Miss
she's brought
Haversham.
him lunch. She's brought him lunch.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I'm not going to be able to bring you lunch later, so I brought it to you now. She's being considerate. She's being very considerate. She's being overly considerate.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
So weirdly, Carla has been
Throw
at
the
work,
whole man out.
left, come back, and Lucas is still there. Carla's on the phone trying to get Sarah in on this meeting thing, but she dingies it. Lucas doesn't want anything to be weird after the last time that they met, and Carla wants some tips from Lucas on how to win Martha over during this very important presentation. And I was kind of confused that there's a meeting later, but they're having a meeting before the meeting.
Right.
I think, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's the meeting that Sarah dingies, not the meeting later.
Right, because Sarah's not going to the meeting later, but Carla wanted Sarah there for this meeting because this meeting was to talk about what Lucas's company wants and what they're interested in. And so it would be important for Sarah to know these things as well going forward if they get the contract, so that she knows what to tell the nigger people what to make.
This is a mess.
It's a mess.
Back at number 1. Ken points out that Peter was rather short with Carla earlier, and then Peter is rather short with Ken when he tells him he doesn't know how many times he has to agree before Ken will shut up. I know, Dad. Yeah, I know, Dad.
Yes, I know.
Keep this up, says Ken, and you really will be on your own. Mm-hmm. You naughty boy. Mm-hmm. At the factory, Lucas's main tip is not to start a sentence with the word so.
Yeah.
I would be fucked. And I didn't used to do this. And I feel like I do it all the time, and it annoys me. It annoys me when I hear it. Mm-hmm. That it's impossible to start a sentence without saying so.
I don't think I've ever heard you start a sentence with the word
so. And it's like that. And I blame my co-worker Nathan, who says it all the time.
I don't know that I notice. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
It annoys me when I do it.
You're so cute.
So, you know.
No. You're so cute.
Where are we?
I don't know. Oh, the word so. Lucas tells Carla not to start a sentence with the word so.
He then goes back on his word and starts down the whole "what happened to the Carla I used to know in Devon" line, just as Peter, who doesn't work at the factory, turns up at the factory with a floral apology.
Which is also ridiculous.
And he overhears them talking about him and his alcoholism, and she admits if she had another chance, maybe she'd take a different path. Peter slinks off as Lucas says that she's trapped in the relationship and misses all the bits where Carla insists that she loves Peter no matter what, and he's her soulmate, and she'd never give up on him. And outside, Peter throws the flowers in the garbage.
And I threw up in my mouth a little bit. Soulmate. I see Carla as a mature, responsible badass. Mature, responsible badasses don't say things like, this guy I'm in a toxic relationship in, he's my soulmate. Mm-hmm. It just burns me up that they build these female characters up to be super women and then put them with subpar men, and all of a sudden they become blubbery idiots. I kind of hate it.
Soulmate equals obsession. I think it's an obsessive relationship, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you're my soulmate, but our relationship is not toxic. And I don't really think of you as my soulmate, even though you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
yeah.
It's just
It's not.
you're my lobster.
Right. Yeah. This is. It's not something like if somebody came to me and said, "Why are you with Gav? Why did you decide to marry Gav?" The first thing that I would say.
I feel like I'm under pressure here.
No, the first thing I would say would not be, "Well, he's my soulmate," because there are lots of other things that
He starts sentences me so far too often.
there's so many other things about our relationship and how well it works, and how symbiotic it is and everything, and how we support one another and build one another up, and yet we can also be on our own. And that doesn't make me feel any less of a person. It doesn't make you feel any less of a person when we go and do things on our own, that we're secure in our relationship. So many things would come up before the word soulmate.
Right.
So if you're starting why are you with this guy with he's my soulmate, that means you have nothing else.
It also makes it not true. It makes it this is a crutch that you can fall on.
Right.
As a kind of panacea, if you will. Mm-hmm. This explains everything. Mm-hmm. If I just call him a soulmate, then that forgives everything that happens that's negative between us, because
Right.
we're still together, because we're
soulmates.
Trademark.
We're meant to be.
Right.
Yeah.
It kind of devolves any further examination or critique of it if you just say, well, that's soulmates.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whew. Back home.
Bet you weren't expecting to have that conversation on a podcast.
No, I feel like I've earned my money, even though we're not getting paid. Back home, Carla offers to stay, but Peter is in the mood again, and Carla hasn't seen him not in the mood today. She hopes he's in a better mood when she gets back. He thinks it would be better if his liver failed when she was away. At least he wouldn't have to look at her long-suffering face anymore.
God, he's such an asshole. Dump his ass.
On the street, an upset Carla runs into Jenny, and Jenny thaws somewhat when she sees Carla in such a state. What a pair of silly moves they are, she says, fighting fit with dotery old codgers for their other halves. Mm-hmm. She suggests that they meet up tonight over a bottle or 5 of Vino de Blanc and put the world to rights. Carla has that meeting, but she's easily persuaded to drop Sarah in it last minute. You're on.
Right, yeah. Sarah, who Lucas very specifically says, oh, well, it's only meant to be a one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned Carla in the very beginning of this.
But now it becomes obvious why they've made such a big deal to notice the fact that Lucas isn't going to be there.
Right. Yeah.
Have you noticed yet? We've said that Lucas isn't going to be there.
Yes.
It flashed up on the screen. Lucas will not be in attendance.
It was up in lights.
Right.
Over the Costa.
Did a 3 or 4 minute song and dance routine on the cobbles just to reinforce it.
Yeah, Mary and Brian and Kathy doing a can line. Wearing tutus.
Sadly. Is it weird that I'm thinking about photoshopping that? Sadly, Daisy was also invited, and she wastes no time in moaning at Jen and Carla for not being younger and more cynical or something. Carla starts worrying somewhat belatedly about the pounding that she's given her kidney. They work through another couple of bottles when Peter calls, and Carla's too pissed to answer, so lets it go to voicemail. And Jenny suggests sending a text saying that she'll see him tomorrow. So that's what Carla does.
Yeah, it would be so easy. It would be so easy to say, I'm at the Rovers with Jenny. I'll see you in a little bit.
Right.
It would be so easy to not lie in this situation.
Mm-hmm. But she's had a few drinks.
So?
For the first time in a long time, though, remember we've given Ryan a hard time for his drunken
acting,
and we gave Addy a bit of a hard time as well, I think, for being drunken at the party. Carla does sound and look a bit pissed during this.
Yeah,
so good job.
She's much better at it than Jenny and Daisy.
She's
Jenny,
slurring
Jenny
just
especially
enough
is a little overboard.
Just to you do it too much and it sounds like you're putting it on. You don't do
Right.
it at all and you don't notice it. So she's just slurring enough and getting enough right for it to work, I think.
Alison King's a great actress.
Yeah. So then Adam drops in at number 1 to be Adam Exposition.
Right.
And to see how Peter is doing, but he's really there to explain that Sarah's at that meeting in Harrogate, not Carla, and Lucas ain't in Harrogate neither. Fancy a cuppa? Mm-hmm. More wine later, and Jenny's trying to talk to Carla into Rita's old nightie. Oh, I did not need to see that. Peter calls again, and Daisy answers, saying that she can pretend to be Carla, but she bottles it and throws the phone at Carla. When she talks to Peter, he's instantly suspicious that something's wrong and can hear Daisy saying something, so thinks there's somebody in the room. But Carla denies it and says that she's at the hotel. She can't speak right now and she'll see him tomorrow, but it's clear that Peter is not convinced.
Again, would be so easy to just clear it up right then and there.
I've got pissed with Jenny.
Yeah.
You're in a fucking stinking mood today.
Right.
I'm just going to sleep over here and I'll see you tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. Would have been so
Problem
easy.
solved.
Problem solved.
Well, this is partly the problem of these characters and other characters, but these characters in particular, that the easiest track for them is to always go down the lying route. And we're, 2 weeks into new Carla and Peter, where they've been honest with each other and admitted their feelings and blah, 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 blah. And they lied to each other last week and they're lying to each other again this week.
Yeah.
Come on. Learn from your mistakes.
Yes.
On Wednesday, Carla is up after spending the night at the pub and she wonders if Peter's called, and Jenny, who's doing Pilates, says, not since last night, when it all comes flooding back to Carla, who can't hold a drink all of a sudden. Jenny advises he's lying, but Carla seems to think that fibbing over the phone about being in a hotel in Harrogate is worse than doing it face to face. Oh, pig's tits, says Carla. Back at number 1, Steve has made Peter breakfast, but he can't face it. He's too consumed by the idea of Carla lying.
I can't face breakfast.
He's too consumed by the idea of Carla lying about being in Harrogate when she's clearly been getting her whole off of Lucas. Steve has no idea who Lucas is, so Peter has to explain. Bitches and hoes, says Steve. Bitches and hoes. Then,
While looking over his shoulder to make sure that Tracy didn't hear him say that.
Right. Then Peter, who doesn't work at the factory, goes round to the factory looking at all French in a little flat cap that he's wearing. Ho-hee, ho-hee, ho. He lets Carla start to lie about staying at the hotel, but Peter reveals that he knows. He's upset to think about her and Lucas together, but he can't really blame her. Carla insists that nothing is going on between her and Lucas. She stayed at Jenny's last night. Fair enough, says Peter, but what about you telling Lucas that you wished that they'd never got back together?
Uh-huh.
And Carla sighs. Despite it all, she still loves him, but wonders if she's the one that's pushing him to drink and killing him, and she calls herself toxic. Maybe without her, he'd have had a better life. And during this, Lucas comes in. Carla makes introductions. Peter isn't keen to get acquainted and leaves. Lucas says that Sarah did a great job during that meeting. The deal's in the post, so he's going to be hanging around here more often. Carla insists that she's fine with that and doesn't want any special treatment or for him to try and avoid her. And later, they're leaving the factory and Lucas is continuing to insist that he knows Carla, and the Carla that he knew would be out celebrating this deal and dancing on tables in Devon. Carla says that she isn't that person anymore. She keeps on reminding him, so Lucas turns his attention to Peter and tries to score some points there. He offers his ear to talk as mates, but she doesn't think it's a great idea, and that's as far as we get with that this week.
Yeah, I've soured on Lucas as well, because he keeps this isn't the Carla that I knew, when from what I understand, they were acquaintances. Mm-hmm. They've only met like 1 or 2 times before. Yep. So he has this idealized idea of what she is in his head, which she points out isn't a truth as it is, because she was putting on a false happy face because she just found out that her kidney was failing.
Right. So you're not the person that I thought you were going to be, and it is your fault and your responsibility to become that person I expect you to be, based on a fleeting acquaintance a number of years ago when you were seriously ill.
Right. Yeah, he's just not letting this go.
No.
And it's kind of annoying.
It's still good that they got the deal though, eh?
Yes. You know what else is annoying? I meant to make a Britney Spears joke when you were talking about Carla calling herself toxic, and I forgot to do it.
Aw. That's why your stand-up comedian career came to a shuddering halt.
Yes.
Thinking about all the jokes that you could have told after the fact.
Yeah. Oh well. I'm sure I'll get a chance to make a Britney Spears joke. A kind Britney Spears joke that is a play on the names of her songs.
Oh, don't explain the joke that you haven't told.
Well, no. And I just want to make sure people know that I would never, ever make a joke about her personal life. Because I'm more Craig Ferguson than that guy with the chin. What's his name?
Jay Leno.
Yes.
That guy with the chin, which I think, honestly, is most guys. But I was able to whittle it down
Right.
to Jay Leno.
Jay Leno
He
was
also-
awful.
Monica Lewinsky, between Britney Spears and Monica Lewinsky, that's how Jay Leno got like 95% of his material.
It just makes me angry all over again that
Such
he
a
got
hunk as well.
that he got that gig instead of David Letterman. But that's neither here nor there.
What gig?
The Tonight Show, when
What did Letterman have?
well Letterman at the time Letterman's Late Late Show followed the Tonight Show, and so it was always assumed that when Johnny Carson retired, that Letterman would get the gig. But then Jay Leno got the gig instead. And so he got the gig. Letterman quit the Late Late Show in disgust. They hired Conan to take that over. And then Letterman moved to CBS and had a far more successful career with the Late Show with David Letterman.
Was it Colbert does? He does a late show.
Colbert took over for Letterman.
Right. And Seth Meyers is doing...
Seth Meyers took over for Conan.
Right.
Yeah.
Our next storyline today.
It's the Late Show format is a dying art anyway, but that's neither here nor there. Our next...
Yep. It's a good time to be a woman or a person of colour when it comes to late night talk shows.
No comment.
Our next storyline today is Tim's fucking dad. On Monday, at Speed Dial, Alia, Yasmeen and Tim's mum are having some awful banter about fingers and thumbs. Wouldn't it be funny if all your fingers were thumbs?
Your thumbs were fingers.
Yasmeen, though, is in a good mood today because and thinks it's time for Tim's mum to learn the ropes in the back of the house and for her to help Alia in the front. Alia's pleased that her gran has taken this positive step, and all is going well until a big lanky drink of water shows up wanting to know if Tim's dad is there because he's looking for a magician to hire for his niece's communion party or something. Yasmeen freaks out and runs to hide behind the point of sale machine. Later, the guy actually turns out to be kind of creepy when Yasmeen delivers his veggie samosas, and he bangs on about hiring Tim's dad again. She accidentally knocks over a glass of water. Tim's mum rushes over to mop it up while Yasmeen hightails it out of the restaurant, proving she knows how to do the vanishing lady.
But I'm pumped-ish.
Thank you very much.
Oh, so this seems to imply that Tim's dad at work at Speed Dial was doing magic tricks for the customers.
Hide the sausage.
While bringing them their food. I would hate that.
I don't know if that's what they're suggesting. They're suggesting
There's
something.
Napkins in his sleeve. He pulls them out like the kerchiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your fork? Oh, here it is behind your ear. That would be awful.
Where's your punch to the face? Oh,
that would have been awful before COVID.
Alia and Tim's mum chase Yasmeen back home. She is apologetic for reacting like that to Tim's dad's name and for everything that she did allowing him to run the business into the ground. And Tim's mum suggests that they de-Tim's dad the place. Alia's all for it. They've already stopped serving booze. Now let's fix that menu that he did his best to fuck up. And they all jump in the air and high five.
Yes, which is nice. Things are going really well for Yasmeen. Everything's really positive. She's
I'm going to make it after all. Leaving the restaurant to Sonia and Navid, they set about making plans, redecorating, updating the menu with new dishes. Yasmeen wants to talk about suppliers, so Alia goes to get a pen and ends up finding a ton of unopened mail with final notice written on the envelopes. Oh, Gran! She admits that she let all this get on top of her. Alia blames herself, but these aren't even Yasmeen's debts, but they're in her name, says Yasmeen, and she has no idea how much she owes or how she's ever going to pay it back. Later, when it's just Alia and Tim's mum explains that she went through this all too. God, Tim's mum. Let Yasmeen have something on her own, please. And she had to pay it all back. Alia thought that they might have been able to write it all off. Tim's mum thinks that maybe the banks are more enlightened these days. So Alia goes to see Imran and weirds everyone out by sitting in Adam's chair. She wonders if court records will help with clearing the debt and freeing Yasmeen of responsibility. Imran suggests speaking to the bank about that. And oh, by the way, while I have you, you guys still owe me for getting Yasmeen off. Sheepishly, Alia promises that he's top of the list of people to be paid.
Is Imran's business going to fold if he doesn't get the $6,000?
He still wants paid though.
Seriously though. Come on, Imran.
Back home, Alia has done her sums. Yasmeen is in the hole for 29 Gs.
Then again, I think Leanne still owes Imran money too.
Everyone owes Imran money. With 6 Gs in legal costs. No, I think, was Imran not doing it pro bono? And it was the other guy, what was his name? Lionel or something.
The other guy.
Right.
Oh, so he can do pro bono for Toyah's sister, but not for Yasmeen.
Right. I was kind of disappointed that they only owe in total 35,000. It seemed like they could probably find that if they really tried.
Yeah. You know, when she's like, oh, it'll take forever to pay off 29 grand.
Yeah, 35,000 seems to be kind of in the realm of student loan-ish debt.
Well, in fairness, I'm still paying off my student loans, and I have been for the past 20 years.
Yeah. You just get a loan and pay it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Consolidate it, pay it off.
Well, yeah,
Or sell that fucking community centre.
which is what's going to happen.
Right. They need to go and speak to the bank, but Yasmeen looks on it as opening old wounds. The longer they leave it, says Alia, the harder it's going to be to fix. Mm-hmm. So on Wednesday at breakfast, Alia's sorting Yasmeen's nasty bills in order of priority, but thinks it looks like the only way out of this is to sell the community centre. And Yasmeen balks at the idea, saying knowing it was there to help women was what got her through prison. Without it, Tim's dad really will have won.
Is that really what the community centre is for? To help women?
It was to help the knicker factory, I thought.
Right. For the yeah. The knicker factory had taken over the community centre for the longest time. I mean, I know they had like different groups come in to do baby yoga and stuff.
Yeah, and Audrey would go in for the occasional pamphlet during business hours.
Right. Yeah. But
factory/community centre.
Yes, it seems to me like Yasmeen is making a bigger deal. I mean, I can kind of understand her saying it was the only thing of mine that Tim's dad never touched.
Right.
That I understand. But the whole, making it out to be this grand thing that it really wasn't.
Yeah. And we never really see it, so I don't think
we haven't really seen it for the longest time
since
because
the factory moved out.
Right. And COVID. So we're not having like group lessons, although I guess Tyrone is going to yoga somewhere.
Later, Yasmeen's looking for a jewellery box so she can sell off some of the guilt gifts that she got from Sharif and some medals from Alia's dad.
Guilt as in Guilt.
Yeah.
Not guilt as in Gilt.
Yep. I think that was clear in my pronunciation. Alia goes to speak to Ryan, promising to come back to help her look for it. So Alia has found the box at speed dial and takes it back to Yasmeen, who opens it and discovers that the medals and jewellery are gone. Tim's dad must have got his rotten mitts in them after all. Yasmeen's day gets significantly worse when there's a knock at the door and it's a pair of bailiffs looking to retrieve the debt. The bailiffs are actually pretty reasonable people.
Yeah, they're not mean.
No.
They're just doing their job.
Nor heavies.
No.
At the moment. One thinks that they would probably become that if they get fucked around.
To.
Right.
Yeah.
They have sympathy for the situation, but at the end of the day, it's Yasmeen's name that's on the loans, the debt is outstanding and she has to pay, and he suggests that they talk about working out an affordable payment plan, and they have to draw up a list of items that they can recover if that payment plan isn't maintained.
Yeah. All of this seems very reasonable.
Alia is stubborn, no, and Yasmeen panics, but the bailiffs quickly, compassionately, and efficiently get on with the job at hand.
Right.
Yasmeen's day doesn't get any better at the bank. Her signature is on all the loans and there's no proof that Tim's dad coerced her into anything. Yasmeen drifts off at this, and because the bank manager is also called Tim's dad, she imagines Tim's dad berating her for her stupidity from beyond the grave. Ooh. Yasmeen says that she needs to go, but it's unclear if she means home or to the lavatory. And apparently, I retweeted this, someone said on Twitter that in actual fact, banks these days, they really are more enlightened.
Yeah.
And they're more likely to take into consideration this sort of thing of women who particularly are forced to do this sort of thing.
Right. And, the guy's kind of a dick about it, and yet, there was a court case that found that he was using coercive control. So why doesn't Yasmeen and Alia bring that up when Alia specifically went to Imran to talk about it and say, should we bring this up?
Imran was more interested in getting paid.
Well, yeah, but still, this is something that Alia has in her head that they do have proof. So why don't they bring that up when they actually go to the meeting with the bank? Because he very specifically says, well, women come in here all the time and say blah, 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 and there's no proof. There is proof.
That man is divorced and that man does not have access to his kids. Alia has
And
another
he's an
go
alcoholic.
at home to get shot at that community centre. But Yasmeen says it's named after Alia's mother, for the love of God, and it's the only thing that's truly hers. She'll never be rid of Tim's dad, she says. And then there's another scene that basically repeats the thrust of the previous scene, except Alia is worried that Yasmeen is getting so worked up that she'll have another heart attack, and this time it'll be for keeps. Yasmeen is made of anxiety and rushes upstairs.
Yeah, I hate this. I hate this whole thing. It's like, hasn't Yasmeen been through enough? Do we really need to watch her go through further devastation? It's kind of like, with Asha's storylines constantly being awful and traumatic over and over and over again. It's like, can't we cut Yasmeen some slack? Spread the doom and gloom around, please.
Well, yeah, they have really eked this out as long as possible because
seriously,
we had up to the point where Yasmeen twats Tim's dad, and then we have the whole Yasmeen in prison thing, then we have the whole court case and the trial thing,
right?
And now we're having the kind of the post-traumatic effect of it all,
right? And
then the financial burden on top of it. It just seems like it is one thing after another. But I feel like it's probably true of the story that he has landed her in this,
right? Yeah, but this show is not well known for being historically accurate on lots of things.
It's not Time Team, no.
No. It's so we can leave a few things that might be accurate to a situation out.
But we saw Tim's dad take out all these loans. They had to be dealt with at some point.
Yeah.
I think Yasmeen's sunny day is not too far in the future.
No.
On Friday, Alia has said, fuck it, we're selling that community centre whether you want to or not. And the price of that is that Yasmeen wants nothing to do with showing the estate agent round. Also, Ryan and Alia agree to some time with each other later at Speed Dial. At Tim's mum is explaining about Yasmeen selling the community centre to get her hands on some cash. It's a shame, but at least she has Alia. Tim doesn't know how Tim's mum got through it on her own. I cuddled a dog a lot. Whatever the fuck that means, says Tim's mum. If only they could do something to make Yasmeen feel less lonely.
Yeah.
So Tim's
she
mum
doesn't like dogs, though.
So Tim's mum goes round to see Yasmeen. Seems that she's had an idea. Congratulations, here's a chicken, she says, to replace Charlotte Bronte. You can call it Emily, or you can call it Anne, or you can call it, what was the other one? I can't remember.
The brother's name. The Bronte brother, who everybody forgets, who has a weird name.
Craig. Yasmeen has never looked more than she's about to punch Tim's mum than she did in that moment. She explains that she can barely look after herself, never mind more poultry. Then Tim comes in to announce...
It's just one more chicken. It's just one more chicken. It's not going to add that much more of anything than the two she has right now. It's not like one more chicken is going to put her over the edge.
But literally, there is a saying for that. It is the chicken that broke the camel's back. Then Tim bursts in to announce that he's got a missed call from Tim's dad's solicitor, and then he leaves.
Branwell. That was the name of the brother. The Bronte brother.
I no longer care.
Branwell Bronte.
At home, Tim fills in Sally on the solicitor stuff while Tim's mum goes off to try and fix the chicken situation, which I presume means killing it. Tim's mum loves to try and fix people, says Tim. Yeah, a bit too much, I'm starting to think.
Well, I think she feels a bit... I think she's projecting an awful lot onto Yasmeen. about her own situation because they are so very similar. But it also feels like this is kind of therapy for her, is that if she can fix Yasmeen's life, it will mean that the ruin that was her life meant something. It gives meaning to,
She's quantum leap.
Yeah. Yes.
Tim's mum, who's becoming
as hot.
Who's becoming a bit of an irritant, has dragged Yasmeen to Speed Dial, the restaurant that she owns and works at, to apologise. Ryan looks like he's expecting Tim's mum to present Yasmeen with a cow. Everyone wants to have a lovely evening in the place that they're never away from when Yasmeen notices the Tim's Dad menu with a new special list that she was supposed to be working on with Naveed. Aya told him to press on without her, and she's already sorted out new suppliers. Yasmeen isn't happy about being kept in the dark, and Tim's mum says people were only trying to help. Well, people need to quit trying to fucking help, says Yasmeen. She doesn't want new chickens, and she doesn't want to go back to normal. Back at Tim's, before she goes home, Tim's mum thinks that she's the one holding Yasmeen back, that every time Yasmeen sees Tim's mum, it's a reminder of Tim's dad. Oh, Tim's mum, says Tim. Then Sally comes down the stairs of Discovery with a basin full of cleaning products. The state of Faye's bedroom has taken a dive since she and Craig started dating again. And Tim reveals that he's heard back from the solicitor. Tim's dad has left him everything. Tim now owns half the house and a quarter of Speed Dial. I'm thinking how this is going to help Yasmeen with her financial problems. And I don't think it does. Unless he sells his quarter of Speed Dial to a third party and then gives the money to Yasmeen. Is that something that Tim's likely to do?
That doesn't really help Yasmeen, though, because then Yasmeen has a third party.
Mm-hmm. But she has the cash. In
Speed Dial. But she's already going to get the cash because she's selling the community center.
The community centre, yeah.
Which really, honestly, has to go.
Do you think Tim is going to be a silent partner in Speed Dial, or is he going to just try and turn it into a burger and chips place?
I think he's just going to give his shares to Yasmeen.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Because he doesn't want it.
He doesn't want it, doesn't need it.
No.
Wouldn't know what to do with it if he had it.
No. And he doesn't need half of that house.
He could insist.
I don't think he's not that kind of person. He already feels bad because that piece of shit was his dad.
Yeah, and they kind of reinforced that this week of how bad he felt about the stuff that his dad did. Oh, not only did all this, but he stole from you too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's feeling kind of a bit guilty about by association with Tim's dad. Yeah, I'm kind of. I'd like this to. I feel like I've been saying this for like 18 months. I'd quite like this to be
wrapped up,
done, and let's move on to
other things
for Yasmeen.
Let's further explore Alia and Ryan's relationship,
which they basically said no one's thought about this for the longest time.
Yeah,
they haven't seen each other.
Because Ryan and Alia were supposed to go alone out to dinner someplace other than Speed Dial, and what happens? They get stuck having dinner at Speed Dial with Tim's mum and Yasmeen. Mm-hmm.
Because they can't go to the bistro because I think it's still shut after the whole
they're still renovating and stuff. They could go someplace. They could go to... No, Roy's Rolls isn't open for dinner.
For dinner. Happy Valentine's Day, my darling. We're going to Roy's Rolls.
See, I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't.
Well, because it means going to the UK.
Right.
If it was...
And hanging out with Roy. And Nina. Two people that I love.
Oh, well.
Not as much as you.
Interesting. Our next storyline today is SummerSlam. On Monday, The Undertaker bumps into Eileen and butters her up by telling her that her hair looks like pasta. Well, she likes pasta. It seems that Tim will be the one driving the hearse.
A cloud of pasta.
For his funeral, and The Undertaker is worried that he'll be a fucking sight. Eileen takes umbrage at this and insists that Tim will be on time, smartly dressed, and will drive as smooth as silk. In Roy's Rolls, Steve and Tim are discussing what kind of crisp they would be when Eileen comes in, who they reckon would be a rigid salt and vinegar, hardy with a pleasant sharpness. She orders Tim to get his suit ready for the funeral tomorrow, and this puts Steve's nose out of joint. He wants to drive the hearse, so he and Tim bicker about it.
Which makes no sense. It makes no sense that Steve, who just lost his son...
And Tim, who's just lost Tim's dad.
Yeah, but Tim and Tim's dad. Tim's happy his dad is dead. Let's not forget.
Right.
Steve is not happy Oliver's dead.
Eileen decides on a hearse-off. So with Tim and Steve dressed like reservoir dogs, she explains the plan to the Undertaker, who seems bemused by the whole thing but goes along with it because of Eileen. Steve's up first. And when he gets back, the Undertaker has shat his pants. Steve seems to be under the impression that it was all about speed, plus he didn't stop whistling the entire time.
Right. Like people don't want to see a happy Undertaker.
The Undertaker needs gravitas. Tim says he has gravitas falling out of his arse. Let me show you how it's done. The Undertaker needs a minute and flashes a smile at Eileen. And at Roy's Rolls, Eileen announces that Tim was the winner. Steve thinks that the Undertaker is a bit of a control freak anyway, and when Eileen sticks up for him, Steve and Tim both reckon the Undertaker is her new boyfriend. We then hear a largely pointless anecdote of a time that Tim broke too harshly and a dog flew through the cab window.
Which is not funny.
No, there's an awful lot of this that is meant to be funny that isn't really funny. I kind of find the concept of it funny, and the idea that, see, Steve has been at a funeral, and Steve knows that hearses don't typically go fast.
Yeah, both.
But yet he thinks he's on the Top Gear.
As you've pointed out,
circuit.
both Steve and Tim have been at funerals recently.
Mm-hmm. So you'd think that Steve would have a better idea how to drive a hearse and maybe not whistle. But the idea of it makes me laugh. On Wednesday, at number 8, this was funny, because for the entirety of this scene, I'm like, what on earth is going on here? Why is the camera at this weird angle? And why is the bottom half of Audrey cut off when she's sitting down? It's because Ted's coffin is in the room.
Right, which is a wicker basket. Right. I kind of like that, because, you know, if it's just going to be, if it's just going to be cremated anyway, why not just
cheap as chips?
Stuff them in a wicker basket. Stuff me in a wicker basket. Make me the wicker man. I don't care.
You're dead.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ted's coffin and an enormous wreath are in the living room. David is appalled, but a very...
Well, it looks like an enormous wreath. But later on, really. It doesn't look like an enormous wreath.
Camera trickery. And I wonder how much of a... you're talking about the emotion of Steve and Tim, to a lesser extent. The emotion of Sue Nichols filming a funeral scene.
A comedic funeral scene when her husband has just died.
And you've got to think
she's
that
a pro.
The timing of that was probably quite close.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when I was talking about Simon, whatever his last name is, who plays Steve.
Gregson.
During the whole Oliver thing when, you know, he had lost a baby once. You know, these people are pros.
Yeah.
And Sue Nichols, though, but she had just lost her husband.
She had a few tears there that I wondered how many of them were real.
Yeah.
I love Sue Nichols.
Yeah, me too. She is a pro.
Anyway, David is appalled, but a very upset Audrey explains that in her youth they used to put dead relatives in the kitchen. Yeah, in Victorian times, says David. You cheeky fucker, says Audrey.
That was funny.
Gail thought it important for Ted to come home one last time for people to say goodbye, and now we just wait for Eileen Grimshaw to fuck everything up. Outside of the car, Tim's hat's too big. He spilled piri-piri sauce down his shirt and he hasn't had a shave. And then Steve idles along to offer support and give Tim the willies, but not like that, about driving about with a cadaver in the back seat with tales of tap, tap, tap on coffins. Eileen's insistence that nothing goes wrong today looks like it's falling on deaf ears. The coffin is now in the hearse.
Steve's being a bit of a dick here.
Totally. The coffin is now in the hearse and who knows how it got there. But Tim can't keep his eyes off it. The Undertaker comes out with the wreath, but doesn't have the keys to the back, so lays the wreath on the ground at the back of the hearse and goes into number 8 to get his keys, while Eileen tells Tim to snap out of it and get in the car. Unfortunately, she chooses to tap on the roof of the car while they wait on the Undertaker, and that's enough to scare Tim off. He leaves the cap on the bonnet of the car and literally runs away while an amused Steve looks on from the other side of the street.
Right, and you would think that this would be the time for Steve to step out of the shadows, wearing his suit, ready to go.
I'll deliver this baby.
Right. That's not what happens,
what
though.
happens.
And that doesn't make any sense.
He decides that he can't be arsed either.
Yeah, he's like, well, I fucked this up, and now I'm just going to fuck off. What?
The Platts are not amused, and Gail doesn't seem to recognise Tim as she reacts to him as that driver. The Undertaker says that Tim ate a dodgy prawn sandwich and has shot himself while Eileen scrambles to try and find an alternative. With Steve on a job, so to speak,
Yeah.
the alternative is Eileen in a cap and a puffer jacket. The Undertaker is very aroused by this, less so when Eileen looks ill-equipped to drive a hearse and ends up running over the wreath that was inexplicably still on the ground behind the car.
Yeah.
Gail is furious. All she wanted was to say goodbye with dignity, but Eileen has taken that from her. Eileen tries to throw Tim under the hearse, but the Platts aren't having it, and the Undertaker clotheslines Eileen's head clean off her shoulders. She's done enough damage for one day. Has she, though? She ran over a wreath that she didn't know was there and shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
It's really the Undertaker's fault.
Right. And also, she's just, well, she was responsible for getting this job for streetcars. So they're kind of blaming her for Tim's behavior and Steve's behavior and the fact that she couldn't find another driver.
Right.
So, and also,
They should have went with Lucky's.
and also Gail and Eileen have bad blood, which must have happened well before I started watching the show.
It was all about her son and Sarah, and then her son was gay, and all that broke Sarah's heart.
Well, Sarah seems to have moved on, Gail.
Everyone's moved on.
Right, and it seems like this bad blood has just shown up recently again because
comes and
they've
goes.
been in scenes together and not been antagonistic towards one another. It's just all of a sudden now they're being antagonistic towards one another. Is it just because of the Undertaker?
Yeah, it ebbs and flows whenever there's a common interest, I think. And Eileen had a go on Gail's husband, but I don't think he was married to Gail at the time.
And also this happened years and years and years ago.
Some years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly within living memory for Gail.
Yeah, it seems like too much is being made of this Gail
I'm just
versus
amazed
Eileen
that
conflict.
in classic Corey at the moment, Gail is very, very adamant that Nick not go out with Leanne. Because Leanne, that Battersby girl's going to ruin your life.
Right, yep.
And I'm slightly disappointed that Gail still isn't of that opinion and looks at grown-up, middle-aged Leanne as still being the teenager that she was back at classic Corey times and still calls her a slut and all that.
I think initially when Nick first came back, Gail was saying things like that, but I think she has softened to Leanne, especially because of Oliver and stuff.
So the Undertaker's driving the hearse and David takes the family car. Tim and Steve are hiding from Eileen and Roy's Rolls. Steve can't resist winding Tim up more about pissing off the ghost of Gail's dad. Then in comes Eileen, who, like the audience, doesn't find any of this funny. How do you think the Platts feel about this, she says. She's ashamed of the pair of them. Back at number 8, the Undertaker has gone to smooth things over, admit responsibility for the wreath, suggest it was no one's fault really that Tim ran off like a twat, but in Gail's mind this was all Eileen's fault and it was deliberate. She suggests that he cut all ties with that woman, and it's very reminiscent, like I said, of classic Corey at the moment, where Gail's in tears at the idea of Nick seeing Leanne. Steve, Tim and Eileen have moved on to the Rovers, where Steve uses the deaths of Oliver and Tim's dad as excuses, but he and Tim both agree that fucking up Ted's funeral was a right laugh, and anyway they've offered Gail their empty apologies. Tim gets the beers in, with Eileen demanding champagne, and the Undertaker's music comes on. As he comes into the Rovers to see the celebration, he's never been so embarrassed and he blames Eileen. Eileen again points out that it really wasn't her fault, but he's having none of it and wants nothing more to do with her. Fine by me,
Right, and
snaps
why are you
Eileen.
celebrating this? You
Right.
know.
On Friday, Gail is still a bit down about the funeral and thinks that Eileen will be laughing her head off about it, but Audrey changes the subject to Fanny, who Gail has discovered may have a connection to a Mr. Churchill. Audrey says Gail looked like Winston when she was young.
And
Not when she was a baby.
And Gail points out that all babies look like Winston Churchill.
And Audrey says, I
Because
wasn't
that's
talking
true.
about you when you were a baby, I'm talking about you when you were young. In Roy's Rolls, the Undertaker sees Eileen and wants to berate her some more about the funeral and how she was full of the joys in the pub. Eileen points out that Tim and Steve have both lost loved ones and she's been trying to keep streetcars afloat, so why don't you go fuck yourself?
Right.
The Undertaker apologises. He stresses about work and he shouldn't have snapped at her. She accepts the apology and the mood thaws a bit until the Undertaker reveals that he has somewhere to be with someone, and that somewhere turns out to be the library, and that someone turns out to be Gail. Later, Eileen runs into Audrey and expresses her concerns that Gail might be losing what remains of her marbles, and she's convinced and concerned about her. And she's concerned about her and the Undertaker. Audrey tells her to mind her own beeswax and wanders off. Fresh from the library, Fanny is no longer an enigma. Eileen comes along and takes a pish because of the Churchill thing and says there's a family resemblance and that two of them share Winston's hips.
So Audrey must have turned around and then explained it to Eileen.
Right.
Off camera.
Gail and Eileen argue in the street. Eileen saying that Fanny put it about a bit. Gail saying that sounds awfully like Eileen, until the Undertaker yells at them to shut up because he's a man and he's had enough of these bickering women, and it's all very childish. Let's call it a night, says Audrey. And that's as far as we get with that.
He even yells at Audrey, who he had just called to come and calm these two ladies down.
Yeah.
Put the hose on them, Audrey.
Shut up, he shouts. Okie dokie.
You know, remember when he first showed up and we thought that he was going to hook up with Mary, and we were so happy that Mary was finally going to be in a relationship.
Yep.
And we were really happy about that. And he seemed really sweet, even though he had some hard edges.
How's that working out?
Why didn't they just go with that? Why did they have to muck it up like this? Poor Mary. Although Mary is getting her joys in another storyline.
Yep.
So.
Very much so.
Yeah. But that's like showing her maternal side.
Oh dear.
As
She's
opposed
getting more
to,
joy out of that than she'd ever get with Undertaker.
That's true.
Although,
that's true.
But yeah, it's that there has to be a conflict. There has to be fighting between people for the same paramour.
Is George really worth fighting over, though? Come on.
It's a kind of last man on earth sort of thing, isn't it?
And Gail's not really interested in him romantically because they're kind of related. I mean, it's a distant relation, but they are kind of related, you know.
She's doing a Giuliani.
Because, you know, as Audrey points out, well, they have a relationship, but it's not that kind of a relationship. Mm-hmm. You know, they're just friends. And George says, I want to be friends with both of you.
Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Bearing in mind it's a man.
God only knows. Men are dumb.
We've seen When Harry Met Sally, right?
No offense. It's my favorite movie.
Ever?
Yeah.
Ever?
Ever.
Wow, I think I've seen it once. That was alright. It went on for a long time, I remember.
I love that movie.
What my favourite movie be? Oh, it's Jaws 2.
You really love that helicopter scene.
Jaws 1 doesn't eat a helicopter, that's my point. That's why Jaws 2 is better than Jaws 1.
Because a shark eats a helicopter.
Yep.
It doesn't get its face cut off.
Well, it ate it from the bottom up. Obviously, it's not stupid. Our next storyline today is Da-do ron ron ron, da-do ron ron.
What was it with helicopters in 70s movies? There seems to be an awful lot of them.
Was it?
Yeah. Well, there's that one where that guy got killed on set.
Oh, the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm sure there are others.
What is it with girls being ghosts in 1980s movies? Because there was Poltergeist.
I'm sure there are others.
On Monday, Ronnie's getting a tour of the builder's yard and is unimpressed, thinking that Ed had a better setup back in their old gaff. Paul backs up Ed and reveals that he used to work at the Knicker factory where Michael works. From frills to drills, says Ronnie. Oh, he's sharp, isn't he?
He is.
Isn't he sharp?
He is.
He invites Paul to join him and Ed at the casino, giving Paul a nickname, Knickers.
Yes.
I love that.
Me too.
Paul's
Me too.
called Knickers now.
Yes. And he doesn't seem to mind it either.
Where's Knickers? Oh, he's just in the pub. Brilliant.
Yay.
I hope they keep this up.
Yeah.
Knickers goes off to finish a job, leaving Ed to explain to Ronnie why it's not a great idea for him to be in a casino these days. Ronnie had no idea. He seems to be a little chuffed that Ed isn't Dad of the Year after all, and can't believe that Ed let Michael take the fall for him. Ed explains that otherwise Aggie would have left him. He knows that Ronnie and Aggie don't see eye to eye, but he asks Ronnie to play nice, especially if he's going to be moving nearby, and offered a longer term contract on the show. And that's all that happens with that this week.
Yes. And Ronnie seems to soften to Aggie a little bit.
At least theoretically,
Yeah.
There's a theoretical softening.
Yes. So he's not going to call her the Iron Lady anymore.
Right.
It's just offensive.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be compared to Margaret Thatcher, do they?
Right. Oh, let me just check. Is Thatcher still deed? Yep, she's still deed. The thing that I could have done with, because they planted the seed last week of the whole
Is
Aggie
Ronnie the daddy?
thing, right? And I'm loving Ronnie. This is a good character. This
It is a good character.
immediately a good character.
Yes.
And they're giving him the swagger, and he's got the banter, and he's got the skill of a master salesman, just to turn everyone that he comes into contact with, he's leaving with a little smile
It's kind of like Michael.
and a little song in their heart kind of thing, a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And then we get 2 scenes and nothing more for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah, I would have preferred more of this and less of Yasmeen.
Right. I'd have preferred more of this and less of pretty much everything else this week. It
Less
wasn't a
of-
great week.
Steve laughing about killing a dog.
That was funny though.
No, the funeral stuff, the running over the wreath and stuff was kind of funny. The whole Steve laughing about driving so fast a dog flies through the window, not funny.
Well, we'd only assume that it died. Anyway, our next storyline today is Asha's lovely storyline.
It's like in Anchorman when his dog gets thrown off the bridge.
Doesn't get thrown off the bridge, gets punted off the bridge by Jack Black. On Wednesday, Nina has turned up at Asha's to walk her to school. Dev is extraordinarily awkward by not being awkward. He says he'll be going out tonight if the two of them want to get jiggy on the sofa. What? And Addie is disturbed by this and prefers Dev when he's not PC and is a bigot instead.
Like they know. Like they've ever heard the Will Smith song, Get Jiggy With It.
Wicked Wild, Wild
Wrong
West,
song.
Jim West, Desperado,
No,
Rough Rider,
it says,
no, you don't
Get
want
jiggy
nada.
with it. Na 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 na.
Summertime.
Na, 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 na. Get
Anyway.
jiggy with it. There's a
Nina, though,
nightmare
has
on my
plans to
street.
take Asha to a spoken word event on feminism or something. Mary
Online.
and Dev are in Roy's Rolls talking about that awful human ITV Corey. Dev senses Nina and Asha coming and tells Mary to be cool. She says she's mama cool, but then calls Asha and Nina lovely lesbians. Dev is affronted at the label. Asha is angry that he told her, but Nina just laughs it off.
Right.
They talk about the spoken word thing, and Dev's impressed with the literature, and he mentions that he's reading a great book at the moment about one man's struggle. Aren't you reading Bravo 20? Asks Asha. Cracking line. And Nina says it's good to keep an open mind. Bravo 20 by Andy McNabb was a book written by a guy who was in Iraq about his I think Iraqi experiences. So
Yeah.
it's a typical man's book. Sort of
Right,
thing.
yes.
A man's book for people who don't read books.
Right.
This is what Dev's reading.
Yeah.
That's why that was funny.
Yes.
On Friday,
Even if you don't know all of that,
It's still funny, right?
funny.
Right.
Because just the name, Bravo 20,
you
sounds like...
kind of know.
Yeah.
It's like a Zero Dark 30.
Yeah. Yes.
You kind of know that has some military connotations. to it.
Right, yes.
On Friday at Roy's Rolls, Asha's complaining about her dad and Mary, who seem to be too into the fact that she's into another girl, but Nina thinks it's cute. They arrange to Netflix and chill later when Dev texts her asking her to invite Nina for tea. Again. Dev is at home, thrilled that Nina has agreed, and Mary is piss-her-pants excited too. Dev wants to impress, so Mary decides to make her Cauliflower Wellington and get a clever and cultured and foreign and gay movie to watch later. Let's play this cool, says Dev. Super cool, says Mary.
Right.
Superfly cool, almost.
Is Cauliflower Wellington a real thing, do you think?
I've no idea, but it sounds horrendous. At Dev's, some jaunty French sex comedy music is playing while Dev pretends to be all bohemian and interesting. Mary tells Nina that she looks like a princess of the dead. Dev agrees and then says Mary has chosen a pre-dinner film. It's French. Portrait de la jeune fille en feu.
Yeah, it's a portrait of the lady on fire.
Nina is impressed. It's a lesbian film. Of course it is, says Asha. She was mortified and tries to back out, but Nina says it's fine. Hooray, says Mary and Dev.
That's really breaking it down into its very smallish parts to just call it a lesbian film. Because it's about more than just being... When you say lesbian film, it connotes that...
I didn't say it was a lesbian film.
I know. But just... Who was it who said it? It was Asha, wasn't it?
It was Nina.
Yeah. It was weird that Nina of all people would just say, "Oh, it's a lesbian film."
I think that was a nod to Asha.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's like saying Jaws is about a shark.
Yeah.
It isn't about a shark. It's about infidelity. It is.
It's about politics, crooked politics,
and infidelity.
Yeah.
The French lesbian film has been a resounding success and has everyone in tears. Dev saw a lot of Nina and Asha in that movie, and that sounds creepy as fuck. Mary found it fiercely erotic. Nina goes out for some fresh air. Asha, reading this as Dev has embarrassed her, runs and falls behind. And in the ginnel, Nina wasn't cringe at Dev. Instead, Dev reminded her of Richard, who tried to share interests with her, and that sort of thing.
Yes, let's all remember that poor Nina has lost her father quite recently.
Yeah. And is
so obviously
coping with it exceptionally well.
Right, and obviously would be quite chuffed with how Dev is behaving.
Right.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense that she's constantly calling him cute and stuff.
She had a lovely time and thought that Dev was right about the movie reminding her of them and their first kiss. They're about to smooch again when Mary shouts, "Cauliflower Wellington," bringing an end to that. And that's the end of that storyline this week. Again, this was fucking delightful.
Yes. Can we just have the Allahan show, please?
They're all... This is goosebumps. They're all so good.
Yeah, they are.
Addie
and I'm really
is in
glad
it for one scene, but is brilliantly funny in it.
Yes. And I'm so glad that they've included Mary back into the family, because that's kind of been missing.
Yep.
You know?
That dynamic between Dev and Mary.
It's just so great.
Because it's a kind of Laurel and Hardy thing, because they both think that the other one is, well, Dev being, I think, the Hardy character.
Right.
Who thinks that the other one's a bumbling one,
right.
but he's just as bumbling.
Right.
It's that kind
if
of
not
dynamic.
More so.
Right. That I really love.
Yeah. I really love their relationship. I really love everybody's relationship within this. It's really good. And it's nice that Nina has these relationships now, and she doesn't have to rely just on Roy for her emotional well-being. Roy and Carla, to a lesser extent.
Yeah, she's got this kind of extended family now.
Right. And
while she was kind of stuck with Roy, she had relationships with everyone that's coming into the into Roy's roles. But it's kind of...
My one concern, I think, is that it kind of feels like Nina is more in love with the idea of being a part of this family more than she is with just Asha.
Right.
You know.
And I don't think, based on what she said previously, she'd be that keen on such a big deal being made about it.
Right, yeah.
But like you said, she's just lost her dad.
Right.
She's finding herself having a bit of connection here with, and seeing similarities with Dev, and how it's nice that someone's trying to make her happy, basically.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah. As long as she doesn't stay in the relationship just to hang out with Dev.
Right. Or Mary. This isn't by design, but we always seem to follow the wonderful Allahan and Nina storyline with Johnny on the inside.
Ugh.
On Friday, Johnny is being weird in his cell, and his new cellmate Kai doesn't seem to be interested in humouring him about it. And
yes,
instead
this is the guy who doesn't wear underwear.
Kai?
Yeah.
Right.
He's the guy from last week who doesn't wear underwear.
Later, Gary's on the phone pretending to be speaking with Jake from State Farm. Behind him, Johnny walks by and spits his meds into his hand and then hangs around like a bad smell behind Gary, clearly associating Gary with imaginary Jake with his relationship with imaginary Aidan. Back in the pool hall in the prison, Kai is continuing to rip the piss out of Johnny, and Gary is careful this time not to get too involved. After Kai leaves, Gary tells Johnny to be careful around his new cellmate. He's heard things. Later, Johnny's off his head looking at cats that aren't there.
Again, it's not a new cellmate. He was a cellmate last week, too, after the other guy died.
Gary tries to tell Kai that Johnny's been through a lot and he's getting worse, but Kai is low in sympathy, having to share a cell with a head case. And later still, Kai walks in on Johnny in the cell, petting an imaginary cat on the floor. And that, thankfully, is all that happens in that this week.
Yes.
You're not enjoying this still.
No.
Although Johnny is
Johnny
sporting a beard now.
Johnny seems to kind of think that Kai is Aiden a little bit. When he first comes into the doorway, he starts to smile, seeing his shoes.
Right.
And then we pan up, and it's the guy who keeps forgetting to wear underwear under his sweatpants.
Right. I really don't have anything else to say about this.
Me neither.
Okay, our final storyline today is Team Simon. Team Simon's score fluctuated quite a bit this week. On Monday, Simon gets home to the flat. He's been out all night and Leanne claims to have been concerned. He's not impressed, throws a fiver down on the breakfast counter for messages, tells her to get them herself today, and then fucks off for a shower, because last week Leanne hooked him. Post-shower, he's at work. Jacob mentions that Simon's phone's a brick and he's going to need a new one so Jacob can get hold of him. Simon explains that he's not new at this bad guy malarkey and describes the time that he was in a gang and knocked Audrey over. Jacob's clearly quaking in his boots when he goes off to deliver some drugged up chippy teas. Later, Jacob throws a fancy phone at Simon. Call it a productivity bonus, and he suggests that he tells Leanne that he was Employee of the Month or whatever. There's another deal coming up that'll be a nice little earner, and Jacob suggests that Simon enjoys a wee toke or two of the product before they shift it. Back home, Leanne quickly turns off the psychic on TV when Simon comes home. She sees a new phone and wants to know where he got it.
Right. After Simon made this big deal about, she's not going to notice this. And then he makes a big deal of slamming it down on the table so she will absolutely notice this.
Right.
It was like, yeah, way to play it cool there, Simon.
He uses the Employee of the Month award story after all, but she doesn't fall for it. And he doesn't give a shit and goes off to play on his console, telling her to call the psychic line if she doesn't believe him about the phone.
Do you know a single kid who would refer to their gaming system as their console?
No. I don't know if they're not allowed to say PlayStation or Xbox. I don't know.
I thought for sure somebody said PlayStation once on the show.
Yeah.
I think it was David when he was playing with Audrey during lockdown, remember?
I'm off to play my personal computer. Yeah. You wouldn't say that.
Or just make up a console name. It's not that hard.
Or just say you're off for a wank.
Right.
I'm off for a wank.
Or I'm off to play video games.
Right. I'm off to play my console now. On Wednesday. On Wednesday, Toyah's gone round to see Leanne and she's up to high dough getting the place tidy, and she thinks that Nick has put Toyah up to this after all the feather and hotline shenanigans from last week. Toyah doesn't have a clue what Leanne is talking about, but it doesn't matter because Leanne has packed all that in, although she is having a personal and in-depth session with a psychic in about 5 minutes.
Right, and that's why she's cleaning up.
So Derek Pakora shows up and he knows... and he knows he's here.
Dick.
I've got that covered. And knows that he's here for a little boy.
41269.
And that I've got that covered. And that
don't
he's
care.
contacted Leanne already. Leanne is amazed until Toyah points out that all of her photos are everywhere and Leanne is still clutching onto a stupid feather. Derek Pakora pretends to go into a trance and says that the spirit is here. Derek Pakora reckons that the kid was ill. No shit, Sherlock. And he's here and happy now. He says he loves Leanne and wants her to know that he forgives her. For what? Leanne is in tears, but Toyah smells a rat. Derek Pakora continues going on about how Oliver loved farm animals and his special red car, but Toyah sees the photos in the car lying around and calls Derek Pakora out as a charlatan. Shenanigans, she declares. And the mist rises from Leanne's eyes, and she knows that this Muppet can't talk to the dead after all. Betty, shouts Derek Pakora. Does 1831 mean anything? Mary loves Dick. Leanne throws him out without him getting paid. In the community garden.
He refuses to take payment.
Yeah.
You know, and there was, like, because he says, you know, he's not in these white feathers. These white feathers have nothing to do with Oliver. So, I mean, there were points where it seemed like this guy was actually maybe doing a service to her in letting go of Oliver, but also by using...
What that is don't take comfort from the feathers, take comfort from me. That's what that is.
Yeah. Man, I'm still sad that he's dead.
Derek Pakora?
Yes.
Yeah.
So now he's hooking up with Betty.
He never saw that coming.
That was the greatest ghost hunting show of all time. I much prefer it to the bros they have on Discovery Now, who...
Almost Haunted Live. It was event.
It was hilarious. It was event television.
Maybe I was off that age, and I never believed a word of it. But settling down at 10 o'clock to watch Most Haunted Live, where nothing's going to happen for 3 hours.
It was great, except for like blurry people running around with night vision.
Or the orbs. Remember the orbs?
And like,
or otherwise, specks of dust.
Looking up people's nose. It was like a funny Blair Witch.
Yep. And then Yvette Fielding saying to Derek Pakora, "You haven't been possessed tonight yet, Derek. You better do that now." In the community garden, Jacob has rolled Simon an enormous joint.
It's comedic how big this thing is.
Now, we used to roll triple skinners, which would be 2 lengthwise together and then 1 sideways at the end. So it would be like a length and a half of a normal rolled up cigarette.
Right.
This was like 5 times that.
Yeah.
This was like a quadruple.
This was the most ridiculous looking
skinner.
joint I've ever seen in my life, and it makes no sense.
It took Simon 2 hands to carry this thing.
Is it just so that it would show up on camera from 6 feet away, do you think?
Maybe. Kelly the Chin comes along, shocked that Simon is suddenly into drugs. He tells her to go home and play with her dollies. She calls him a stupid prick and walks off. Coming out of speed dial, Toyah sees all of this, but it's unclear at this point whether she saw the joint, although you'd have to think it would have been impossible not to.
Especially since it's poking her eye out from across the...
Right.
Ay.
Back at the house, Leanne can't believe that she's been so stupid. Toyah says it'll get easier, but in the meantime, maybe give Simon some attention. Leanne thinks that Simon is sound, but Toyah disagrees, saying that what she saw earlier gave her some cause for concern, and worried that he might be going off the rails again, but stopping short of mentioning the mahoosive joint.
Right, yeah. He's just hanging out with dodgy kids, so she didn't see the mahoosive joint.
But Leanne says that, "I'm not in the mood to talk about this."
Right, yeah.
And just kills the conversation.
Right, yeah. I'm not in the mood to talk about the one thing I should be paying attention to and taking responsibility for.
And this is why the Team Simon percentage got a little nudge up.
Right.
Because Leanne's disinterest was just so appalling.
Right, yes.
On Friday, Simon is on the phone
and she
apologising.
doesn't seem all that sorry for decking him.
No.
Because when he first comes out, she's like, "Oh, why are you so mad at me?" He has to point out to her that she punched him in the face.
Right. Need I remind you, ma'am, not 24 hours ago, I was the recipient of a punch in the face.
By you.
Simon's on the phone apologising to Kelly the Chin. I wished it hadn't done that as well. The flat is a bit of a state when Nick comes in with coffees and croissants. How lovely.
Ooh la la.
Nick announces that Sam wants to go on a bike ride, and Simon is initially up for it until he remembers that he has a thing at work this afternoon. Leanne remarks that Nick gets more out of Simon these days than she does, so Nick looks like he's about to start crying again.
Aw.
Later.
Dad of the year.
Nick and Sam on a bike.
Slagging one kid off on the other.
Meet Simon outside the chippy. Sam says that Nick said that Simon wants to go on a bike ride with him, like it was his idea.
Right.
Nick reminds Sam that Simon is busy, so Sam starts rhyming off all the days that he's busy and what he's doing on those days, like playing chess and stuff, and when he's free, and when Simon's free, until Simon says, "Oh look, fuck it, let's just go now." "Have fun," says Nick. "Oh, we will," says Sam, ominously.
And then Nick runs for the hills.
So they're about to hit the red wreck when Jacob revs up in a fancy Beamer, demanding that Simon jumps in. It's an emergency. After some back and forth with Sam, Simon agrees, telling Sam to go home to his grands. And Simon speeds away with Jacob.
A.K.A. Gail's.
With Sam noticing that Simon has forgotten his bag. But rather than go back to Gail's, Sam decides to wait outside the chippy and sit on the curb until it's dark.
Right. Why? He's a smart kid. Why wouldn't he just go back to Gail's house?
Right.
That's what you should do.
Meanwhile, in an alley, Jacob explains that the emergency is that they have a rat on their books who needs to be taught a lesson. And they see the guy and they give chase, Simon somewhat of a reluctant participant. Later, Sam is still sitting on the curb when a bloke runs down the street chased by two blokes in a BMW. Fuck it, says Sam, and he grabs Simon's bag and seems to decide to investigate. Simon and Jacob have caught up with the guy and somehow have managed to get him in the boot of the car. Simon thinks this was brutal and looks to be enjoying himself, and they batter on the boot, and then Jacob tells Simon to wake the gimp. Get the petrol. Meanwhile, Nick is back at Leanne's, worried that Simon and Sam haven't come home. Leanne moans that all she and Simon do these days is argue, and I'd punch him in the face occasionally. You'd be doing that at the best of times, says Nick. Well, this isn't the best of times, says Leanne, who has forgotten what impact the word even had in Nick's sentence.
Right, yeah.
She just worries about him. Well, tell him, says Nick.
She doesn't worry about him, though.
No.
Is the problem.
Tell him, says Nick, who for once looks more than 60 seconds away from tears. Simon and Jacob pour water over the car for, I guess, dramatic purposes, while Simon plays with his lighter and the guy in the boot loses his mind and shits himself. They open the boot and let him out and he runs away, past Sam, who's there on his bike and has seen the whole thing. A panicked Simon gives chase, but it's too late. Sam has gone, but Jacob has noticed that Sam had Simon's bag and hopes there wasn't anything in it. Oops, says Simon.
Yeah, maybe we should have noticed this before now.
Right. Jacob orders Simon to fix this shite out. So Simon pedals to number 8 to see Sam, but Sam is on the couch pretending to be asleep. So Nick tells Simon to come back in the morning and thanks him very much for today.
Right, yeah. It's like...
And Nick also gets a phone call while he's standing on the doorstep that he takes
Right.
while he's talking to Simon.
Right.
Rather
Yeah.
than just leave it.
It's Natasha.
Right.
And, okay, we're worried that they've been gone for a long time. Sam comes home alone without Simon.
Right. With a bag
With-
that he never had.
With a bag. And Nick never says, oh, by the way, here's your bag to Simon.
Mm-hmm.
Simon doesn't say, oh, well, he has my bag. Can I get my bag, please? Which he could very easily do right then and there. All of a sudden, we've forgotten that they were gone a long time. Sam was sitting right outside that chippy that people drive by and walk by all the time on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody noticed that he was sitting there the whole day.
Nope. I didn't know who he is. But just this kid. Actually, Stelly was talking about the time that she was sitting on a curb and the police came up to her and told her to go home.
When did
you
this
know about
happen?
that? Did you know about that?
No, when was this?
I found about this on the Patreon of our SpongeBob SquareCast podcast.
When was this?
It must have been recently because Axel was Axel at the time.
Oh, yeah, it's probably quite recently when she and Axel and Ellie were going to Subway or something.
Probably. That's all they seem to do.
Right.
It's kind of
Sitting on the curb, eating their 6-inch subs, and the police say, nope, no eating 6-inch subs on this curb.
Right.
Not in our town.
Right.
Don't they have something more important to do than
And
to
this time,
harass 12-year-old girls and one transgendered boy sitting on a curb eating Subway sandwiches?
Now we know how John Rambo felt in First Blood. The time that I sat on a curb, my friend got punched in the face because of it. People just hate people sitting on curbs for some reason.
That doesn't make any sense.
Anyway, Simon gets back to the flat and just wants to listen to his music, but Leanne wants to chat about how nice it was that he went out with Sam. When she gets no chat back, Leanne goes off for a bath, muttering that judging by how Simon's behaving to her, anyone would think that she'd punched him in the face. Oh yeah, that happened. When she's gone, Simon calls Jacob and also wants to see him out on the balcony. Very Romeo and Juliet. Jacob tears a strip off Simon for leaving 2 bags of coke with a kid in a bike helmet. Simon thinks it'll be cool because they're hidden under some flyers. Jacob says you better hope so, because remember that kid we briefly put in the boot of a car and then let go? That'll be nothing compared to what happens to you. And that is how we end this week's episodes.
Dum dum dum.
What was the point of the phone call from the balcony?
To get him to go outside so they could talk very openly in public about 2 bags of Coke. He's shouting, "There were 2 bags of Coke in that bag!" Really loud. In a neighborhood that a cop lives in. Granted, in the same building too. Aren't they? Isn't Craig and Imran and all the other people who live with them? Where do they live?
No, they're above a shop.
But yeah, it's like we should be getting like the big bad, the big drug villain, the drug lord.
Yeah.
Soon. I'm surprised that he hasn't premiered yet already, because they keep talking about him in all the articles and stuff about this guy who's going to be playing the drug lord and blah 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 blah.
Oh,
blah.
that's that guy?
Yeah, it's that guy.
Oh, okay.
And how like he's wearing like a piece of jewelry that belonged to his dad, and it's a tribute to his dad who loved Coronation Street. Everybody's parents seem to have loved Coronation Street.
What's your point? Of course they did. There was nothing else to do. I have managed to catch up on this year's Emmerdale, classic Quarry on the itv.com, the hub.
Yeah, I'm still trying to catch up with Ozark.
Watching, especially the old Quarry and the old Emmerdale from the late 90s, it's just such good fun. And I think because it's 2 episodes a day when it was like 3 episodes a week, everything seems to happen really quickly.
Right.
Like, and there's iconic moments seem to happen every other day, and people leave and get back together again, and then leave for the 3rd time or whatever, all over the space of like from Monday to Thursday sort of thing. It's really, really good fun.
Yeah. I'm still trying to catch up with Ozark, even though the Golden Globes are tomorrow. But I've been distracted because Sally and I watch our WandaVision on Fridays, and also The Muppet Show is now on Disney Plus. So I've been enjoying watching
how quickly we get distracted.
all this ridiculousness from The Muppet Show from the late 1970s and early 80s, and all of these people who were famous once upon a time.
I was quite, especially after last week, very much Team Simon. I'm kind of liking the idea of him turning a little bit heel and being a bit of a rogue.
Right, because he was a bit of a rogue before as well.
But he has good cause to be now.
Yeah.
But he doesn't seem to be fully immersed in it.
No.
He's kind of been there for Sam, and he's helping out Nick.
He's the new Gary.
He's just basically pissed off at Leanne is all that he is.
He's the new Gary. Been pushed into a life of crime by people being mean to him. Yeah. A woman refuses to show him love, and so he turns to a life of crime. It's Gary all over again. Only instead of Sarah, it's Leanne.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of romantic love, it's maternal love.
I was also more into him being a drug runner when it was just dope.
Right, yeah.
Now it's coke, that's a bit more serious.
Yeah.
That's a very long time in jail for that.
Yeah.
And then you feel
he'll
about marijuana here is like legal, so it's not even that he's doing anything particularly naughty.
Right, yeah.
Although
Won't be long until
he's,
trying to deliver heroin and hollowed out hymnals.
Right. So that was Coronation Street this week.
Yes.
I don't think it was very good. I think there was lots of it that kind of annoyed me and bored me. The bits that were good, I think, were exceptionally good, and maybe were exceptionally good because the things that were round about it weren't that great.
Well, no, because anything that the Allahan family does anymore is always exceptionally good.
Right.
The chemistry is just perfect there now.
So it seems.
Yes. So obviously our moment of the week is going to be a portrait of the lady on fire.
Yeah, I think so.
Portrait of a lady on fire, not the lady on fire.
And I think we gave it to the conversation that Asha had with Dev 3 weeks ago. But
and
I don't think there's any real competition for it.
And a couple of weeks before that, we gave it to Dev and Ali dancing when they find out that Corey is no longer a thing.
Yeah, that might have been last year.
Yeah.
So I only started recording it on my spreadsheet this year. I'll have to go back and listen to the other ones.
Doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
But for the sake of completion.
Yes, that's our moment of the week.
That is our...
Well, that was fun.
Nope, that was our...
Timbot 4000 says you have got to be shitting me.
That is our... Nope. That is our...
Moment of the week.
Oh, fucking finally, moment of the week.
There we go. Your bonus moment of the week.
Johnny's cat. It's kind of getting old now, isn't it?
It was never fresh.
Johnny petting an invisible cat.
That whole storyline is just so dull.
It's just bonkers.
The thing is that I reckon it's probably doing an interesting take on a character in prison.
Right.
That he would have a character in prison who has this illness.
Right.
How does that affect him? Mm-hmm. So it asks a reasonably interesting question. It's just that the answer is awful.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not doing anybody any favors with this storyline.
Yeah. That's our
Boy moment of the week.
Rightio.
Shall we wrap this one
Yes,
up then?
please.
If you've ever... Oh, I haven't done that. If you've ever hit the wrong button on your Zoom PodTrack P8.
Mm-hmm. If you've ever hid dope in a chippy bag or heroin in a hymnal.
Don't incriminate
Don't tell
yourself
us.
by telling us. Tell us something else. We're the talk of the street at gmail.com, which is also our address on Skype for voicemail. And on PayPal, if you want to chuck a couple of bucks in our virtual tip jar, we're at Corey Podcast on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Please check out our merch store and YouTube channel, links to which you can find on our Twitter bio or on the other stuff page of the talkofthestreet.podbean.com. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or on your podcast provider of choice. Thanks for making it to the end of another
Tell Gav
episode.
how funny he is.
And frequently hilarious. And we will be back next week with more
Talk of the Street.
Talk of the Street. Cheerio.
Bye.